Anti-Shiism is hatred of, prejudice, discrimination, persecution, and violence against Shia Muslims because of their religious beliefs, traditions, and cultural heritage. The term was first defined by Shia Rights Watch in 2011. But it has been used in informal research and written in scholarly articles for decades. The dispute over who was the rightful successor to Muhammad resulted in the formation of two main sects, the Sunni and the Shia. The Sunni, or followers of the Way, followed the caliphate and maintained the premise that any member of the Quraysh tribe could potentially become the successor to the Prophet if he was accepted by the majority of Sunni Muslims. The Shia, however, maintained the view that only the person who has been selected by God through the Prophet, which is also known as Ghadir Khum, could become his successor. Thus Ali became the religious authority for the Shia people, militarily established and holding control over the Umayyad government. Many Sunni rulers perceived the Shia as a threat to both their political and religious authority. The Sunni rulers under the Umayyads sought to marginalize the Shia minority. Throughout history, the persecution of Shias by their Sunni co-religionists has often been characterized by brutal and genocidal acts. The most recent case of religious persecution by Sunni Muslims involved the genocidal massacre, ethnic cleansing and forced conversion of Shias by ISIL in Syria and Iraq, comprising around 10% of the entire world's Muslim population. To this day, the Shia remain a marginalized community in many Sunni-dominated countries, and in those countries, they do not have the right to freely practice their religion or establish themselves as an organized denomination. The grandson of Muhammad, Imam Hussein, refused to accept Yazid I's rule. Soon after, in 680 CE, Yazid sent thousands of Umayyad troops to lay siege to Hussein's caravan. During the Battle of Karbala, after holding off the Umayyad troops for 6 days, Hussein and his 72 companions were killed, beheaded, and their heads were sent back to the Caliph in Damascus. These 72 included Hussein's friends and family. The more notable of these characters are Habib and Asghar. During the raid, Yazid's forces looted, burned, and tortured the women and children. They then took the heads of the martyrs, planting them on spearheads to parade. The women's shawls and headdresses were also stripped, and they were forced to march beside their men's heads all the way to Damascus. They stayed in prison there for about a year. While Imam Hussein's martyrdom ended the prospect of a direct challenge to the Umayyad Caliphate, it also made it easier for Shiism to gain ground as a form of moral resistance to the Umayyads and their demands. There was also the Umayyad tradition of cursing Ali. After the Mongol sack of Baghdad in 1258, prejudice against Shias became more frequent, reminiscent of blaming Shias for every problem. One statement states that a Shia minister had betrayed the empire by exposing their weaknesses to the Mongols. In response to the growth of Shiism, the Ottoman Empire killed Shias in Anatolia. Hundreds of thousands of Shias were killed in the Ottoman Empire, including the Alevis in Turkey, the Alawis in Syria, and the Shia of Lebanon. The sack of Shamakhi took place on the 18th of August 1721, when 15,000 Sunni Lezgins of the Safavid Empire attacked the capital of Shirvan province. Shamakhi massacred between 4,000 and 5,000 of its Shia population and ransacked the city. On the 21st of April 1802, about 12,000 Wahhabi Sunnis under the command of Abdul Aziz bin Muhammad, the second ruler of the first Saudi state, attacked and sacked Karbala, killed between 2,000 and 5,000 inhabitants, and plundered the tomb of Hussein ibn Ali, grandson of Prophet Muhammad and son of Ali ibn Abi Talib, and destroyed its dome, seizing a large quantity of spoils, including gold, Persian carpets, money, pearls, and guns that had accumulated in the tomb, most of them donations. The attack lasted for 8 hours, after which the Wahhabis left the city with more than 4,000 camels carrying their plunder. While Shias and Sunnis have lived side by side in the subcontinent for almost 15 centuries, anti-Shia violence has been growing consistently for the past 3 centuries. Anti-Shiism has two aspects: Shiaphobic literature and hate crimes. The anti-Shia literature that portrays Shias as religiously heretic, morally corrupt, politically traitors and lesser human beings sets the ideological framework for the violence against them. In the medieval period, the Middle East saw bloody clashes between both sects, but the Indian subcontinent remained safe and peaceful because of the secular policy of Mughals. Until the end of the 17th century AD, only 2 anti-Shia books were written in India. Minhaj al-Din by Makhdum-ul-Mulk Mullah Abdullah Sultanpuri and Rad-e-Rawafiz by Sheikh Ahmad Sirandi also